Hello, everyone. My name is Anita Agrawal. I'm the CEO and lead designer of Best Bargains Jewelry. We've been in business for 30 years, and I'm so excited today that we have with us Alexia Connellan from New Jersey. And she is a fantastic designer. I'm so happy to be able to interview her because I've seen her gorgeous pieces featured in Tucson, Arizona, because Alexia has won numerous awards, including AGTA Spectrum. And I think, Alexia, you've won the Spectrum Award a couple of times, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken. Yeah, so this is amazing. Oh, thank you so much for joining us today, Alexia.
Well, thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be here.
And yes, I was reading a little bit about your bio and I thought it was absolutely fascinating. You come from a sculpture background. Could you tell us a little bit about how you went from sculpture and artistry in that sense to becoming a jewelry artist?
Well, my background is actually in fine art. So when I was in university, and I went to Columbia University, I studied both art history and visual art. So the history of art and the making of art. And my specialty was really photography and sculpture. And I took up gem collecting as a hobby. And while I was collecting gems, I was also taking sculpture classes to continue my education at School of the Visual Arts in New York. And there I focused on ceramic sculpture, which is very interesting because it's extremely technical and you have to really build around your work and think about what the final piece is going to look like and how to put it together and solve those problems, or else you're not going to have the piece that you want. And so I went from collecting gems and studying sculpture to taking night classes at FIT, the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York, which has one of the top jewelry design programs in the world, in my opinion. And I started to take classes there, and I would chat with my professor after class for hours. And he said to me, "Why don't you just design jewelry? You obviously love it. Can you draw?" And I said, "Yes, I have an art degree, so I absolutely can draw." But at the time, I was working in tech, and it was very hard to give up that salary.
Oh, wow. So you were working in tech as well. This is going to definitely lead to some questions at the end of the interview about how that works. So, how that's changed for you as well. This is incredible. I also read a little bit how your designs are influenced by architecture. And what I'll do is I'll actually just share your website so that everyone can get an idea of what we're talking about in terms of your designs. Can you tell us a little bit about how architecture has inspired you to make your pieces as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now the one that has the most architectural inspiration would be the spiral earrings, and these were influenced by the Dean staircase. When I was in London looking at the cathedral, and oh gosh, I can't remember the name of the cathedral. I'm sorry, must be nerves. Um, and I would walk into the cathedral and look up at the dean staircase, and it has this spiral around a central column. Around a column, there's no central support, so it is just open, and it's absolutely beautiful and probably quite dangerous to walk on. And so I would go like every other day, and I would look up at it. And at the time, I had a pair of morganites that I wanted to design some earrings for. And one day it just struck me that I needed to design the earrings in a similar manner to the Dean staircase so that it would wind around the morganites, and have this beautiful double helix shape, almost like DNA. And
Yeah.
it was really looking at that architecture that inspired me to design the earrings in this way. And I love the movement of them, and I love the graduation of the pink sapphire to diamond and then to pink sapphire again.
Yeah, I absolutely love these earrings. I remember seeing them when you won the AGTA Spectrum
Yes,
Award.
yes, I
Uh,
won an award for these.
Yeah, they're just so lovely. And I remember looking at them and I was like, they're much larger than obviously what we can see on screen
Yeah,
here.
they're about
They're
3 inches long, so they're good size.
Yeah, they were definitely like a showstopper. So if you're to wear them on, an evening out, they would definitely catch a lot of attention because they're just glamorous. But I really do love the feminine, detail details here. Like it's a very feminine piece. And I love that it's got like such an homage to this classical look, but it's also so contemporary. Like you've definitely melded a few different looks into this. And I love this piece. It is probably my favorite piece.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Actually, you've described my style perfectly. That's what I'm after because my favorite period of jewelry is really 100 years ago. So Edwardian, Georgian, Victorian, Regency um, earrings are my favorite. But I really try and add a contemporary color scheme, some of the newer ways of making jewelry, and adding in some ombre to it. But I like to stick to colors that complement each other. So you don't see a lot of, I would say, fighting going on. They're very harmonious. And so it's really an older style of jewelry, or an antique style, but with a contemporary appeal and coloring. So that's what I was getting at with this collection.
Oh, that's fascinating because I see what you're saying with that nod to the Edwardian style or like the classical elements because your Victoria bracelet, I mean, even the name reckons back to that period, right?
Mhm.
And I can see all those elements in this. And this also won, if I'm not mistaken, did it win 2 awards
No,
or
that one, the honorable mention, I
okay.
believe in classical design. That was my first entry. I was not expecting to win anything at
That
all.
is amazing. And how long have you been designing?
Oh, wow. It feels like forever now, but I have been designing for about, let me see, about 7 years. I've been designing, but I've been collecting gems for about 15 years. So because I started as a gem
Wow.
collector and I've been looking at jewelry my whole life because it's always been a lifelong love.
And I mean, what better person to like actually start designing jewelry than somebody who's really passionate about it? I mean, coming from the idea of being a gem collector, like that's really cool. Yeah, and being an artist, like I think that's such a great fusion of experiences. Yeah. So, tell me a little bit. We talked a little bit about your greatest design experiences and your inspirations and influences. Is there anything that you else that you would like to add in terms of your inspiration or your choice of colors or your favorite materials even to work with?
Wow. When I design, the gems really dictate what I'm going to work with. So I always try and make sure the design supports the gem in the best way and shows it off and protects it in the best way. So, for instance, there's some delicate gems that would look great as a ring, but I would not choose to design it as a ring for fear that it could be easily damaged. So the gem really dictates what is going to happen. Um, for instance, these pearl earrings, I really wanted the whole earring to complement the shape of the pearl. And it's based off of a hydrangea flower. And hydrangeas are beautiful and
They
round.
are. Yeah.
Pearls are round too. So I feel like they balance each other out, but there's some great contrast because there's so much texture in the hydrangea part of the earring and the pearls are so smooth. And so I really love playing along with those similarities in color, but contrast in the texture of the earring.
Yeah, and I can see that you brought it to life by making it this dome shape. And hydrangeas, like they just pop at you, right? When you see them, they're this large, beautiful dome shape. And I think that you captured that so beautifully in these earrings, to give it that extra texture. It's really lovely. And I really do have to say, I love your aesthetic. I think it's just so feminine and delicate. And I totally agree with you. Like, I find when people come to me as jewelers, I'm always surprised that rings are so popular. But personally, for me, like, I feel like any look is complete with the perfect pair of earrings. And I'm totally an earring person myself. I'm like, I don't necessarily have to wear anything else. You just wear like your earrings, and your whole outfit gets complete. So I love that about this. And I also like this one here. And I think you got an award for this piece as
Yes.
well. Like it's amazing to me. Like, you started out in art and then you've won all these awards in jewelry design and you have such a myriad of experiences, but it's really quite impressive.
Oh, thank you. I feel like all the things that I did in the past really feed into what I do now and make me a better designer. And I'm glad I didn't start when I was much earlier, that I had some experience living life and trying different things. Because one of the things I learned in art school is that the best way to be a good artist is to know your material. And to know your material, you have to play with it.
Yeah.
So by playing with lots of different things and experiencing lots of things, it really feeds into my perception of how things should move, how things should feel, because I don't feel that jewelry is just something that you see, but it's something that you wear. So it has to feel good. It has to have good balance on the body. It has to feel as good to the wearer as it does to the person observing it. So I think that all of my experiences really helped me to do that better.
Yes, that is so true. It's really true. One thing that I really liked what you said as well was this idea when somebody comes to you with a piece of jewelry and they really want a certain color or a certain gemstone. But you mentioned that, you know what, some gemstones just don't work. Like if you're wearing something durable and long term, like I
Mhm.
had a client once and they were getting married and they both wanted trillion cut amethyst and they wanted large trillion cut amethyst for their engagement rings. And I was like, I can't do that for you.
Yeah,
I just can't because, if you're going to wear this every day, it's going to be knocked about. And I'm like, what you're looking for is a purple sapphire. And I ended up finding them like 4 carat purple sapphires that were trillion
very
cut. And it
nice.
took me 2 years. And
Yeah.
I see that with your designs, you're using color gemstones. And I think people don't recognize sometimes how hard it is to source matching or equal looking color gemstones. Tell me a little bit about like, how do you deal with that? Like, how do you explain, the rare beauty that's achieved with color gemstones?
Well, colored gemstones, unlike diamonds, they're not plentiful at all. Not that diamonds are plentiful, but colored gemstones even less so. And if you have a particular shade and shape that you're going after, it could take you years to find it. It took me about 2 years to find the sapphire for my engagement ring. I must have looked at about 20 of
Wow.
them and sent them back. It was driving my now husband crazy. It's like, they all look blue to me. I was like, no, 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 but I want the right shade. I
Yeah.
wanted to have this particular like brilliance to it. Like, oh no, this one is too gray. I don't like the inclusions in that one. But I think patience paid off, and I look at that sapphire every day, and I absolutely love it. And I'm glad that I waited. But that's just something that people who buy colored gemstones will eventually learn, because I won't be the only one telling
Yeah.
them that.
Yeah.
So yeah, gemstones are rare, and fortunately, I started off as a collector, so I have over 300 rare gemstones. And there's some that
Wow.
I'm always looking for more. Like if you can find some 2 carat plus cobalt spinel, I would love to see them.
Oh, wow.
But
Yeah. I would love to take a look at your collection one day. So like I love colored stones. Like that's what we primarily deal with ourselves. So I do love colored stones. Um, all right. Let's change the nature of the discussion a little bit. So this is the thing. We're all sitting at home and like today I was like doing my makeup and I'm like, oh my God, this is like the first time in weeks that I've done my makeup.
right.
So we're in this pandemic and I've heard a lot of designers talk, clothing designers, other designers talking about the direction that's going to happen after the pandemic. Where do you think you will be? Do you think we're going to be like glamming it up after this pandemic is over? Or do you think, in terms of where jewelry's headed, we're going to be in this kind of like blase sweatpants look afterwards? What do you think's going to happen?
I think it's actually going to be a combination. I think that comfort is going to be king. I haven't worn heels in years, but for my friends that do wear heels, they never want to go back. But they still want to wear, cute shoes. So I think that, low kitten heels or maybe like a comfortable block heel in a really great design is going to be popular. And I think that's going to carry over to clothing and to jewelry as well, that it's going to have to be comfortable to wear, but interesting to look at and fun to wear, because we've really learned that life is short, and if something's not bringing you joy, then what's the point of doing it? So sure, we might continue to wear sweatpants, but maybe they'll be like orange striped with a great pattern in like a really nice silk material, with a fabulous bow for a drawstring. So I see the real combining of both of those things, and I hope that it'll encourage people to take their jewelry out of the vault, wear it. Life is short. stewards. Like I eat on my good china every single
So
night,
good.
because I don't want them sitting there in the cabinet waiting to be handed down to grandkids that wouldn't appreciate it anyway.
Oh
Um,
my God, I love that point. That is such a great point. Like I'm looking at like some of my clothes and I'm like, they've got the tags on because I bought them just before the pandemic. And I'm like, I really gonna start wearing this stuff. And I think the same thing is true about jewelry. I mean, go out and show it off, polish it off. And, in some cases, this is a great opportunity to take assessment of the jewelry that you have and maybe, get a designer like Alexia to like bring it back to life. Maybe it needs a little bit of an oomph, right?
yes, I think
Um,
so. And
so
more
yeah,
color. I think more color is going to be a big
always.
thing, because color just affects your mood. And when I see something that's a color that I enjoy, it really perks me up. If I'm a little bit tired in the morning, I'm going to put on like my bright striped sweater and maybe some fun shoes, and that really does lift me.
It's true. It is so true. Putting in that little extra effort or that little extra, detail really does change the way that we feel. So, so true. And color always, like color is primary. Like it's the most important thing I think in jewelry. But I'm biased. So, um, all right. In terms of like how gold and silver prices are fluctuating, do you think that's had any impact on the work that you do or anything that you've been creating? Um,
Not really. It hasn't impacted me, but it's just because of the type of jewelry that I do is fine jewelry or high jewelry anyway. So when I'm considering a piece, I'm thinking more about the art of it. However, if I were designing for another company that wanted to stay within a certain budget for their jewelry pieces, then that would have to impact the design. I think you'll probably see a lot more filigree, and a lot more open space in jewelry so that it still has that same bold impact, but it's lighter, so it costs less. So going forward, I would expect that to happen.
That is such a brilliant idea. In fact, somebody was saying that like Bridgerton, the show, I don't know if you've watched it. I haven't had an opportunity yet, but they were saying that because of those pieces are so airy, like you were saying, they've got a lot of filigree, a lot of architectural elements that they're coming back in style. But it makes sense that it might be also an economic thing too.
Yeah, they'd be
Um,
lighter and easier to
yeah.
wear, so it would check the comfort box as well. And I think they look fabulous.
That is a brilliant, analysis. Love it. Also, in terms of, I noticed that you do a lot of work around ethically traded gemstones and ethically sourced gemstones. Tell me a little bit about maybe, a couple of things that designers could do to make sure that they're, contributing to this new growing movement. What do you think we can do on the immediate front?
I think the immediate front from jewelry designers is really to ask more questions about where the gems come from. And that may or may not affect your decision to buy. But even just in asking the question, it will alert the vendors and the companies that mine and sell the gemstones that these are concerns that their consumers have. So to ask, where did this gemstone come from? Under what conditions? Do you know? They may or may not know, but there's this thing called Google, and there are mining magazines as well. And yes, it will take people more time to learn that certain things might come from locations that treat the miners and the workers better than others. But once you have that information, you're probably going to remember it, or you could write it down. And it's okay not to be perfect every single time. I think that gets in the way, that people think that you have to be perfect from beginning to end on the subject. And if you can't be, then you shouldn't do anything at all. And I completely disagree. Just choose one small thing. And to me, the first thing is just to start asking questions about where the things come from. And then maybe just choose one type of gem or one type of material and to research that and see under what conditions, and are you okay with those conditions. Like I was recently going to buy some Ameritrine, and I asked the dealer, where does this Ameritrine come from? And they said, Africa. And I said, I've never heard of Ameritrine coming from Africa. Okay, like which country? do you know which mine? And they say, oh, actually, I'm wrong. It comes from the Anahi mine in Brazil. It's not in Brazil, it's actually in Bolivia. And so I looked up the Anahi mine, and it ends up they have excellent mining conditions. And I said, that's fantastic. But then there's part two. I said, and where was it cut? And they said, oh, it was cut here in our factory. And I said, I would like to see the conditions of your factory. Could you please send me a video? And so they did. And we had a few points of going back and forth on that. Like I had to ask them about, do you cut wet or do you cut dry? Do you open the windows, or why not? What type of ventilation system? But they were willing to have this conversation with me. Some vendors are and some vendors are not. So in the long term, I trust this vendor much more. And I did end up purchasing the gemstones from them. And they said they would take some steps to improve the cutting conditions in their facility. And if we hadn't had that conversation, that wouldn't have happened. So I think that just having the conversation is a great thing. I mean, can I change the world as, one person? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe one gem cutter at a time.
Oh my God, that is absolutely fantastic. I love the idea of just like asking those questions, putting them forward. It creates, it puts people on alert. They realize, well, maybe, you know what? Why is this person asking me? Because I think most of the time, even when I do purchasing, that might not come across. We're always so like in tune with the idea of cost effectiveness. But if we're really wanting to make an impact, then maybe it's just about asking the right questions and letting people know, well, you know what? Certain things aren't as okay anymore, right? Because change really is gradual. And I love the fact that you talk about these baby steps and taking time to make that change. It doesn't have to happen all overnight, but when we start and we take responsibility ourselves, then that's when we can influence that change. And I love the way that you put this. And I definitely hope to implement that in more of my future purchases as well. So thank you for that. I love it. Um, Lastly, I guess we're down to our last question. I wanted to ask you, as a young-ish designer yourself, I wanted to ask you, what would you recommend for somebody who's just starting out in this industry? I mean, they might be in lockdown, they might have just graduated from a jewelry design program. What would you say to them, and what advice would you have for them?
The biggest advice I'd have for them, and actually have for all artists everywhere, and that is to stick to your guns. Don't let other people tell you what you should or should not be doing. I cannot tell you the amount of times that I've been told I should be designing costume jewelry. And I tried that and it was fun, but it wasn't where my heart is. Or that I should be designing more geometric jewelry. My muse just will not do that. That's not who I am as a designer, and forcing myself to do that means that I would create jewelry that I wouldn't be pleased with. Even if other people loved it, I would not. And how can you sell something that you don't love? How can you stand behind something that you don't love? And I think that it's very important for artists to trust themselves and believe in their vision and to keep on going. Sometimes you'll be more or less successful, but don't stop. There is a taste and desire for all kinds of things out there. I don't think that there's one particular look that absolutely everyone wants, because there are billions of people in the world and they have billions of tastes themselves. So keep doing what you're doing and stick to your guns and use some of the new tools out there. Like I'm starting to build up my social media presence, because in the past I just had my jewelry sold in stores, and because of the pandemic I thought, maybe I should think about social media and selling online as well, and what's that like, and learning all about that. So that's something new, and I think something good that has come out of the pandemic is that people are being more resourceful than they were in the past, because they have to.
That's really great. That's really perfect advice for somebody starting, even in any art sector. I've worked in the arts myself, and totally, sometimes we get dissuaded or dismayed, or we're like, oh well, we should do the next it thing, right? And the thing is, when you do the it thing, you're going to be ultimately disappointed, because arts really is about the passion that you have, and the more passion or love you have for that piece, the more you're actually going to be able to sell it too, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah. And you know what? I just wanted to touch base because you just talked about it. I know that you come from the tech sector. And I was wondering, like in this pandemic, have you found, that really helpful for yourself to come from a tech background to help you propel your business into, the post-pandemic world?
Well, I think that the help that it's given me is that I'm not afraid to break anything. That I know it can be fixed as long as you don't like double wipe it or something like that. And so experimenting is okay. And if you get it wrong, you can delete it. It's it's all right. And I found that perspective to be really helpful because I know there are many people out there that really don't necessarily understand how things work. And I don't understand everything either. And I'm open to learning. But that means that they can be afraid of trying new things, afraid of getting it wrong. And I think that right now we're all kind of experimenting. So it's okay to try and it's okay to fail and try again. And that's something that I definitely had to experience in the tech world. Everyone has experienced a project not going quite the way that you wanted it to, or the people on the team not working together as well as you would have hoped, or the final project being different than what you thought it was going to be. And you've just got to learn to bend and to regroup and pivot and keep going forward. So I think that coming from that type of background where it's a constant that you have to make changes and adjustments and reassessments has really helped me as an artist and with my business as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. That totally makes sense. And I think that's a really good point as well is, you can break things and then you could fix them. And that's,
Yes.
that is definitely a tech philosophy, right?
Yeah, and
But
sometimes
also,
the break looks better than or works better than the very first thing. I'm sure you've heard the story of the invention of Post-it notes, that the inventor was actually trying to discover some kind of adhesive that would be super strong, but instead he developed a light tack one. And if he hadn't made that mistake, or if he hadn't accepted that, I tried to create one thing, but I've created another. What can I actually use it for? And it was great business for 3M. So I think you should look at things with that perspective. Like maybe I didn't achieve my objective. Maybe I've achieved something different and better. Um,
yeah, it's true. Things don't always turn out the way that we expect, but they might turn out better, or we might learn something really important out of it. So, this has been an absolutely incredible conversation, especially for an inaugural issue. Like this is like I could not ask for more. Like I feel like you had such great insights and points to make, and not just in terms of jewelry design, but your overall philosophy and outlook on business and best practices. So I really enjoyed this conversation. Like I felt like you fed my soul. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. I would love to know how do people find you? Like I know that I shared the website, but please do share your social media handles and other information that you might want to share.
Oh, I would love for people to come and find me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is just at Alexia Connellan. It's ALEXIA CONNELLAN. Please follow me. I'm learning this whole social media thing myself, but I've got some really great content planned. People really enjoy my jewelry quizzes. I usually have a daily jewelry quiz. What gemstone is this? Or what material is this piece made out of? And this month I'm featuring solely female designers because it's Women's History Month, and I've found that many of my favorite pieces were actually designed by women, but I did not know that
Oh,
because all
wow.
I knew was the name of the jewelry house and say, oh, I really love that Cartier flamingo pin that Wallace Simpson would wear. I did not know it was designed by a woman, and it was. And
Wow.
so I really wanted to share that with my Instagram followers.
Fantastic. Yes, that's so true. Like so many times we don't know about the contributions that women have made because they're hidden or they're just overlooked, right? Or, we're not cheered on as much sometimes. So, it's really important that we support each other and raise awareness about each other and the great work that we're all doing. So, I definitely look forward to checking out your posts about the incredible women who work in this industry. So, Thank you. And if you want to reach out to me, I'm Anita Agrawal. You can find me on Instagram at Jewels Forever CA. And the four is just the number four. Maybe I move my head. There we go. Like that. So it's Jewels Forever CA. And down below, there will be the links that you can follow Canadian Jeweler Magazine. You may know or may not know, it is the oldest magazine in all of Canada. And we're still kicking. We still have such great content. And we look forward for you to join our conversation and let me know who else you would like to see featured in this segment. We look forward to many more. So thank you so much, Alexia. It was an absolute delight. And we look forward to seeing more of your work.
And
Thank you.
thank you so much, Anita. It was so great to share this with you today. I really appreciated it.